He's done a number of things. Did a stint with New Zealand Golf, which is why I was interested in his experience. He's just come back from the LIV tournament in Adelaide. Nick Rowland is his name. He took a tour group there. I guess let's start at the finish and then we'll walk our way through it. When you got on the plane to come back to New Zealand, what was going through your mind about what you'd been over for the last week?
A little bit of exhaustion. How can I get some sleep on the plane back? But to be honest, what was going through my head is if you're designing a sport, you design LIV Golf. If you're designing a sport in the modern age and you want it to be all about the fans, that's what you design. And they packaged it up perfectly while we were over there. An insane tournament, better than the old school Wellington Sevens back in the day. It was just incredible what they've done and what they've managed to do and really flip golf on its head and turn it into the Happy Gilmore sport that we all enjoyed back in the day.
So when did the planning for this start? Was it a late thing on your calendar or?
For us at STH Group, from a tour perspective, we looked at it late last year. We were a bit nervous about what was happening with LIV, I guess, at the time. There's always chats with PGA and what they're doing around merging and if it's going ahead, et cetera. So we didn't really know where we stood, to be honest. Then they announced kind of, I think, earlier this year or late last year that LIV Adelaide was back. And we thought, well, considering it won the world's best golf event at the World Golf Awards last year, we better be there. So, we started planning from there, got in touch with the LIV guys, sort of organised some tickets, talked to some good friends at South Australian Tourism, and we were working with them on how do we promote the tournament in the city here in New Zealand and taking a tour group over. So that's kind of when it started, which is really late for us from a tour perspective. But, we had a couple of people jump on board and the interest is continuing to build now, which is great.
Yeah, because I feel like last year's LIV, people go, that made a bit of a waves. And being New Zealanders, I think we sort of sat on our hands and go, let's see if they can do it again. And it went bang again. So you arrive in Adelaide, and I guess people with all different persuasions just want to go and watch, or is there golf being played in the lead up? Or what does the week look like?
So I know there's a pro-am. They do a pro-am. We didn't arrive till the Thursday. I think the players start coming in on the Sunday, Monday. Obviously, as we arrive, there's a whole bunch of private jets and things like that going on. But yeah, players start arrive earlier in the week, and then we arrive Thursday, basically the first day of the tournament, which is the Friday. So 3-day tournament. LIV, if you didn't know, stands for 54, which is a 54 LIV, obviously Roman numerals.
I never knew that.
There you go. It's something I learned over the weekend.
Wow.
So 54 holes, obviously three days of golf. So we arrived the Thursday. The city was abuzz, to be honest. As soon as you went to the airport, there's signage, there's bloody putting greens on the bag carousels, there's all sorts of stuff happening. So they dress the city up really well. There's big giant golf balls through the city. The big malls have got, LIV stuff everywhere. You see banners everywhere. And it's all the players, obviously, that everyone knows that have obviously gone over to LIV to play. So, we arrived Thursday and then we're into it Friday morning.
Because I feel like there's been a lot of trash talking backwards and forwards and the fighting and the barbs with Dustin Johnson and Rory McIlroy and John Rahm signed and he's a traitor and all of that. But just golf-wise, if I just look at the golf thing, smaller field, 3 rounds, not 4, shotgun start, which I'll get to all of those soon. But I also feel like the players, because a lot of them went on for big coin, they've taken it upon themselves as unofficial marketers for it. They're a lot more accessible. Ian Poulter's been on the station. They just do it to promote it without pom-poms or anything, but they just say why they like it. Did you feel like the players are invested in marketing what they're doing more than they did with the PGA?
100%. You look at the likes of a Cam Smith, and I reckon this tournament in Adelaide's moulded around him, right? Because he's the personification of what the LIV experience was. He's got the big mullet. He doesn't mind a beer, and I think what he's done for the sport, and he was one of the early signings for LIV. LIV kind of embraced him early on and said, what are we going to do? And I feel like, and not that I know this, but they've developed this tournament, completely around him. And I think even Australian golf to an extent, but also PGA and the likes of those bigger organisations, the R&A, they probably haven't embraced Australian golf, and LIV have given them a chance. So they've kind of, I guess the fans have embraced that, and they've said, well, if LIV's coming here and they've got some of the best players in the world, let's get along and get involved. And, I think 60% of the people at the event came from the city, which is pretty remarkable for a tournament like that, 40% international, which is also a good number. I think Australia's really embraced the tournament, and they're certainly kicking some goals with it. It's just it's an amazing event.
So do you feel like, particularly the South Australians in and around Adelaide, they're saying, look, let's bugger all this infighting between PGA and LIV. This is a sporting event with some really good golfers, and they really want us there. And they're just, I'm in there for the entertainment.
Correct, yeah. And modern day sport, it's not necessarily always about the sport these days. It's they've got Fisher there on the Saturday night, a DJ who's on the decks in front of, I don't know, I felt like it was 50,000 people were standing there watching him. He's saying we're in Adelaide and we're at a effing golf tournament. That's pretty remarkable to have a DJ standing on stage doing that after a couple of shoeies. So, they have embraced it. I think they've embraced it, and the people there were of all ages. There was kids, there was women, there was adults, the older generation who just love the golfing aspect, but it kind of caters to all, and you can go to different areas of the golf course to, experience what you want to experience. If you're a traditional golfer that doesn't like loud music, you probably can't go anywhere because the whole course has got speakers going and it's going absolutely nuts. But they've kind of catered to all, which is great, and you can find your own little pocket of your own what you like and what you enjoy. I saw Phil Mickelson take 4 bunker shots on one of the holes. You don't see that every day, and I was recording it on the phone, and one of the guys next to me said, I reckon that's the only recording of Phil Mickelson taking 4 bunker shots. But that's in a quieter area of the course. There wasn't as many fans around, and then you get into the party hole, which is a completely different experience. So you can experience it all. You can follow along as a golfer. You can be there from a festival perspective. You can be there for a few beers with your mates. You kind of do anything while you're there.
Is the music going on every hole, the whole tournament?
100%. Every single stand, every single seating area, there seemed to be, I don't know how many speakers underneath it, but it was absolutely insane. So the players, I guess, for me, it's a little bit off-putting having that amount of music on, but at the same time, it's probably so much that it becomes a blur and you just block it out anyway.
Right. So that you haven't got the quiet please people standing around.
You've got a couple of people that hold up signs, but I feel like they were holding up signs to make sure the people on the left of the fairway or the right of the fairway knew the ball was coming their way. It wasn't a quiet please.
Because you won't hear a 4.
No, you definitely don't. And some are obviously, busier than others, but certainly, everywhere you went, you could hear music, even if it was a dull kind of bass movement in the background, you could definitely hear it everywhere.
So how do you approach each game day? So, just the logistics like parking and ticketing and food and beverage. What does that look like for your average punter?
So I think this is the biggest ever LIV Golf event. So they probably underappreciated how many people were going to be on site, to be honest. A lot of the buses were making good movements, so they had buses going everywhere. I mean, Aussie do it differently, right? Like, we were at Formula One and there's 130,000 people on race day and it took 40 minutes to get a tram to get out. And Aussies just know how to do that. They know how to take on those big events. So they had the buses going, they had the Ubers. The Ubers were a bit of a walk away, but if you took a 15-minute walk, you're in an Uber back into the city. It was a little bit of a trek out there, so it was 15 minutes out to the golf course from Central City. So that's a little bit of a nightmare for people, but once you're in there, you don't have to leave. I mean, they had extremely huge fan zones, and I reckon there was probably 4 I walked through at different points. One main one where the kind of stage and the bar and the food was all, and there's all sorts of games. I mean, you could play. There was a football thing. There was a AFL thing where you could kind of play some AFL. There was a Formula One driving simulator. There was some driving, virtual driving ranges, and there's everything that you can kind of do, and embracing all sorts of sports as well, which was quite cool. And then you get into the corporate areas, and obviously they're all kind of fully catered, and booze and food or whatever you need there. But for the average punter who's wandering around, there wasn't many lines that I could see. Occasionally at the bar before a Fisher gig there was a bit of a line, but apart from that you were pretty good.
I had a few texts. A lot of people don't like LIV, saying it's a dance party with a few people swinging sticks. Like, I'm a golf fan, you're a golf fan. You'd never see anything close to this at a British Open or a US Open. Do we have to start thinking about it, instead of PGA Tour and LIV are both golf, they're almost 2 different sports. They're 2 different experiences.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess the I guess the question in my mind is, how do you open a sport up like golf to a new community? And this is one way of doing it. I guess there's other ways of doing it as well. But, as a sport, golf is obviously on the improve in New Zealand. I'm not sure what the stats are around the world. But when you've got high-profile events that are opening up opportunities for people to come and watch, and a lot of these people, they were festival goers, but they've definitely got a bit of golf in them. They knew what a par was. They know the lingo, but they want a slightly different, more fan-engaged kind of party, I guess, to get along to. I think there's room for both, to be honest. There's the traditional Masters, PGA Tour events. You've got, there's definitely storylines around all of those. They're steeped in history. There's a whole range of things that they have going for them. But this is it's a completely new way of experiencing, I guess, a sport. And as a sport, I think golf in general should embrace it, because there's a whole bunch of people there. I mean, when you went to the Fisher gig on that Friday night, it was 50-50 men and women, and a lot of the women were 20 to 30 to 40 years old who probably have never played golf in their life. And here they are at a golfing event. So, they might have just gone later on in the afternoon, but they've certainly experienced, or their partner's been there, or they've kind of embraced going along. So it's opening up new communities all over the show, and I think that's really powerful for the sport.
Was the golf good? Take away the music and the booze and the food and the DJs and all of that. Was the golf good? Yeah,
I found the golf really good. I mean, there's a teams aspect to it, which I think is really cool. I think they were 54 under. I think the Rippers who won it, which is the full Oz team, and then it went to a 2-hole playoff. Like, it was remarkable in the end to see a couple of guys trying their best to win it for the team, and that actually meant more to them than what the single event did. The prize, it's really interesting. The prize money is $4 million for the winner, right? Yeah. So they get $4 million. I think the Masters is 3.5. I don't know that for sure, but and then the prize for the team is $4 million as well. So they obviously split it between the team and them. But there's big money on the line, but also, they just absolutely embraced the fact that it was the team kind of coming together and winning that event. And they had to do it, they had to do it tough. I think they were well ahead, and then in the last couple of holes, I think the South African, I can't remember what they're called, South African team came back, and then the Aussies obviously took it in the second playoff hole. And
did I read correctly, Greg Norman did a shoey on stage?
He sure did. Yeah, so the shoeys are good fun. There was a booze company that was obviously involved called the Fizz, I think they're called, and they do like a seltzer drink. And so they had a few rubber shoes going around. So there was a few shoeys going down every now and then. But that was just, I guess, embracing the community. That was post an interview on stage where they were awarded the trophy. Cam Smith gets up there and absolutely thanks the crowd. That he's like, I've never played in anything like this before in my life. So I guess it got to that kind of festive stage where everyone was like, oh yeah, tournament's over, let's have a couple of beers, and obviously then you had the gig on that night as well. Flight Facilities played on the Sunday night.
Was there any dissension out there? There's all of this, and we've had texts about this as well, about sportswashing and all of that sort of thing. And I'm not immune to these sorts of arguments, but I've always said Lydia Ko's played in Saudi Arabia. The World Cycling Tour have the Tour of Saudi Arabia. They have yachting events there. That pretty much every sport, MMA, World Championship boxing, and all that sort of stuff. And that word sportswashing is a convenient thing to say. But was there any signs of people opposing it, like outside or anything like that?
I didn't see any of that, and you could look across any sport in the world and you'd see it, right? I kind of see the argument as well, and I take it with a grain of salt as well. Some of these events, and I guess LIV's been overly communicative, and there's been a lot of discussion around it with LIV particularly. But you look at Formula One, you look at EPL, everything's kind of involved. And I guess on the flip side is I've heard a lot of stories just on my travels and going at different conferences and stuff like that. The stuff they're doing within the Saudi community is absolutely remarkable as well. I'd heard about the other day an education city, which is 12 kilometres squared, which has got schools, and it's, for underprivileged kids. There's female schools. One of the Football World Cup stadiums is getting converted to a completely female-friendly stadium, and they're all just going to host female football and other sports. They're doing some really remarkable things things, I guess, within that community. And yes, you could call it sport washing, but I guess if you take what they're doing and the amount they are investing in the likes of some of these sports and exposing new communities to them, then I kind of think, well, it's actually okay. Well, it's not okay, but it's sports. I don't agree with sports washing, but what they're doing is they're opening the door for a lot more people to enjoy physical activity and sport.
Because maybe I'm a little bit cynical, but I see what they're doing and all those things that you just explained. That's them apologising for their past without saying sorry, if you know what I mean. They're trying to make good or appear good or something like that, but every country's got their issues. But so the LIV thing, it's days over. It's only been finished for a few days. Have you had inquiries already for next year?
Oh, heaps, yeah. We got heaps over the weekend and even more since. I think once you start telling the story, it's really hard to watch LIV, right? So LIV Plus has got the live stream on it, but not a lot of people know about that. It's not on TV. I think,
but it's free to watch.
But it's free to watch. Yeah. In Australia, they had it on free to air over the last 3 days or 3 days of the tournament. So it hasn't got the exposure of some of those other tournaments. But yeah, once you start telling the story and you get the eyeballs on it, they go, "Whoa, that looks like an awesome time. Let's go there." And you've got everything. You've got and we'll structure our packages differently next year. Like there's a golfing package, which you can easily put together and put them into certain hospitality zones or, go out and play around and kind of be there to watch the golf. And then there's the festival goer that wants to go to the parties at night and have a few drinks in the corporate stand and do a couple of shoeys. So you've got a couple of different kind of ways in which you can market it, which I think is really remarkable, because if you're marketing the likes of a Masters, there's one way of marketing that, right? And there's one way of getting a community involved, whereas this is slightly different. It opens up doors to more people and more opportunities.
So it's got a future. It's got a lot of interest from the hobby golfers, the serious golfers, and then the festival guys. Yeah, you're right. It's like ticking all those boxes, isn't it? And while you were talking about the party holes, I was thinking, is it the Waste Management that has the 17th hole, the party hole, and how much we love watching that? Well, LIV's got 18 of them. Well, maybe 14 of them.
Yeah, so there's an official party hole, and this is the only tournament in LIV that does it. So Adelaide Mayor actually has said, we want to do a party hole, and then we want to be involved in this tournament, and that's what we want to do, and that's kind of what's making it quite more memorable for people in this part of the world. Around the world, it doesn't necessarily have those party holes, but it's still got the loud music. I mean, their tagline's golf but louder, right? So it's playing loud music. It's getting that kind of atmosphere. It's the Happy Gilmores of the what we've seen in the past and that sort of crowd. Obviously that's a humorous movie, but you kind of see the parallels as to what they're doing there. So this is really unique. It's unique like the Waste Management. So and I guess with the Mayor embracing it, then they've got a whole bunch more opportunity within that zone as well. They made it bigger this year, the party house, so more stands. It was deeper, so they could get a lot more people in. They got to avoid the trees and things, but they made it bigger and better, and I'm sure they'll do it again next year. So it is. On the calendar for next year, the dates aren't announced yet, but we do know that it's going to be happening in Adelaide.
Awesome.
SENZ, it's Kiwi for sport.